In this video, we are going to focus on factoring polynomials using the distributive property. Now, what we need to do is recognize what we did when we multiply polynomials. And here, factoring is just going to work our way backward. Let's look at a polynomial here. Let's look at an expression of a polynomial. Let's say we have 2x minus 8 and we want to factor this. Well, to factor this, you would have to pull out greatest common factor. So you find the biggest number that can go into 2x and also 8. And that would be 2. So you would pull out a 2. So 2 is your greatest common factor. And you have x minus 4 left over after you pull a 2 out. Because 2 goes into 2x, x times. 2 goes into 8, 4 times. So 2 times what number give us 2x? That would be x. 2 times what number give us 8? That would be 4. So going from top to bottom, what we did is we factor. Now, if we were to go the other way around, given factor form, this is what we did in the past. We learned how to multiply polynomials. So if you're given a polynomial at the bottom, how do we multiply? We would use the distributive property to multiply, so that would be 2 times x is 2x, and that's how we get the top, and then 2 times 4 is 8, so that is called distributive property. So what we're doing today in this lesson is we're given a polynomial, and we have to factor using the distributive property. It's very important that we learn how to factor because later on you need to know how to solve quadratic equations. And the way we solve quadratic equations is usually by factoring. So factoring is a big deal, and it's very important that you know how to factor. Okay, let's look at this example right here. 5x minus 15. It's a polynomial, and we are going to factor this polynomial. So here's a procedure of how to factor polynomials. So first thing you have to do is find the greatest common factor. GCF is the greatest common factor. So basically, greatest common factor is what it is. It sounds like greatest common factor, meaning the biggest number, according to this, the biggest number that can go into 5 and also can go into 15. So what would that be? Well, that would be 5. So 5 would be your greatest common factor. So what we do is we pull out the 5. So that's your greatest common factor. Okay, so that's step number 1. Now step 2 is to use the distributive property to rewrite the expressions as a product. Now once you're able to come up with your greatest common factor, and then now you're going to write as a product. So 5 times what? Will give you 5x minus 15. So let's see. 5 goes into 5x, x time, and you can check it. 5 times x is 5x. And then 5 goes into 15 3 times. And again, you can check it. 5 times 3 is 15. All right, so this is what we're looking for. Okay, let's go over another one. Here's another polynomial, 18x to the 4th, take away 12x squared. Okay, we're going to factor this polynomial, and we're going to look at a procedure of how to do it, and then we're going to go through it step by step. So first thing we have to do here is come up with the GCF. That is the greatest common factor for 18x to the 4th, take away 12x squared. So think about this for a minute. What would be the greatest common factor for these two terms? 18 and 12. What's the biggest number that can go into 18 and also 12? Well, that would be a 6. 6 would be the biggest number that can go into 18 and then also 12. And then x to the 4 and then x squared. So they both have at least x squared, so you're able to pull out x squared from the x to the 4th, and then you're able to pull out x squared from here. So 6x squared is going to be your greatest common factor. Okay, so that's step 1. Step 2 is to use the distributive property to rewrite the expressions as a product. So 6 times what is 18x to the 4th minus 12x squared. So let's see. 6x squared goes into 18x to the 4th is 3x squared time. Okay? And you can check it. 6x squared, if you were to take 6x squared times 3x squared, you get 18x to the 4th. And then minus 6x squared goes into 12x squared 2 times. And again, you can also check it. 6x squared times 2 is 12x squared. So this down here, this is the factors of the top polynomial expression. Okay, let's go over another example. So here we have 4x to the 3rd power. Take away 12x squared minus 16x. And we have to factor this, and it's a polynomial. Let's bring in the procedure. Here it is. So first thing we do here is to find the greatest common factor. Find the GCF, which is the greatest common factor for 4x cubed. Take away 12x squared minus 16x. So can you think of the biggest number or the biggest term that can go into these 3 terms? So let's look at the numbers. You got 4, 12, and then 16. Well, 4 can go into 4. 4 can also go into 12. 4 can also go into 16. So 4 would be your greatest common factor for the 3 coefficients. Now here you got x cubed, x squared, and then x. So they all have at least an x. So we're able to pull that out. Okay, so 4x is going to be your greatest common factor. So that's step 1. Step 2 is to use the distributive property to rewrite the expressions as a product. So that means 4 times what is going to give you the top polynomial. So let's see. 4x goes into 4x cubed. That is going to be x squared times. So 4x times x squared is going to be 4x cubed. And then 4x goes into 12x squared. That is going to be 3x. And you can check it. If you take 4x times 3x, you have 12x squared. And then 4x goes into 16x is 4 times. So if you look here, you have a trinomial. We're not sure we're able to factor this, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. So this is a basic trinomial. So let's go ahead and try to factor this. First thing you have to do is to come up with your c. So your c is -4. And then we have to come up with 2 numbers that when we multiply, we get -4. But when we add those 2 numbers, it comes out to -3. Well, let's try -4 and +1. Well, -4 times +1 is -4. -4 plus +1 is -3. So that works. All right, so these are the 2 numbers that we're looking for. So now what we can do is we can rewrite this in factor form. So that would be x take away 4 and then x plus 1. And then we bring down the 4x. So according to this, 4x cubed take away 12x squared minus 16x end up having 3 factors. 4x is a factor. Here's another factor. So it's that. Okay, let's take a look at another one. Let's look at this polynomial here. And we have to factor it. So let's bring in the procedure. So step number 1 is to find the greatest common factor. So between these 2 terms, are you able to tell what they have in common? It looks like this term right here, you have the 2x plus 3 inside a parenthesis. And then you also have a 2x plus 3 here. So you're going to be able to pull out the 2x plus 3. So let's go ahead and pull out 2x plus 3. So 2x plus 3. So that comes out. And then we have to find the product of it. So 2x plus 3 times what will give you the top expression. So let's see. So here, if we were to pull out the 2x plus 3, so we pull this out, you're left with 5x. So that means 5x goes there. And then here, if you pull out the 2x plus 3, you're left with positive 2. Right? So these are the two factors. Now, if you multiply these two binomials, you get back the top. Okay, let's look at another one. So here you have 10x cubed y squared, take away 2xy squared plus 14xy. So this is a polynomial, and we have to factor this. So let's try to come up with the greatest common factor for these three terms. Now for these numbers right here, you got 10, 2, 14. What would be the biggest number that can go into 10, 2, and 14? Well, think about that for a minute. It's an easy one. What do you think? Well, that would be 2, because if you go higher than 2, then you would not be able to work with the 2. So 2 is your greatest common factor for 10, 2, and 14. And then x cubed, you got x cubed here, x, and then an x. So you're going to be able to pull out an x. And then y squared, y. So you're going to be able to pull out a y. So that is going to be right here. That's your greatest common factor. So let's see what we have left. Okay, so step 1, we found the greatest common factor. Now step 2 is to use the distributive property to rewrite the expressions as a product. So 2xy times what will give us the top expression? Well, let's see. 2xy goes into 10x cubed y squared. Well, 2 goes into 10 5 times. X goes into x cubed, x squared time. And then y goes into y squared, y time. And then you can always check it to make sure it's right. If you take 2xy times 5x squared y, you get back the first term of the top. Let's look over here. 2xy goes into 2xy squared. Looks like you're just going to end up with a y. And then 2xy goes into 14xy. Looks like 2 goes into 14 7 times. And then xy is just going to be 1. xy goes into xy 1 time. So I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite this again. My greatest common factor is 2xy. And then I have 5x squared y minus y plus 7. Okay, so step 1 was to come up with the greatest common factor, and then step 2, use the distributive property to rewrite the expressions as products. So 2x times this whole thing right here, okay, will give us the top expression. Video lesson. So let's take a look at this trinomial. It's a polynomial, and in this example, we are going to factor this. So 16x to the 6 times y plus 16x squared y to the 4th plus 32x cubed y squared. So first thing we have to do, well, let's bring in the procedure of how to do it. So first thing we have to do here is find the GCF, which is the greatest common factor. So can you think of the biggest number that can go into 16, 16, and then 32? Well, can 16 go into 32? Yes, 2 times. So therefore 16 is going to be your greatest common factor for the coefficients of it, these numbers right here. And then for the variables, see x to the 6, x squared, and then x cubed. So you want to pull out the one with the lowest exponent. So that would be x squared. And then for your y, you got y here to the first power. Okay, and then y to the fourth, and then y squared. So your greatest common factor is y for the y. Okay, so that's step 1. Come up with the greatest common factor. Now step 2 is to use the distributive property to rewrite the expressions as a product. So that means 16x squared y times what will give us the original polynomial. So let's see, 16x squared y goes into this, 16x to the 6y. Looks like it's just going to be x to the 4th. Okay, because x squared goes into x to the 6th is x to the 4th time. And then here it's just going to be 1. And then 16 goes into 16x squared y to the 4th. Well, that's just going to be y to the 3rd. And then here 16 goes into 32 2 times. And then x squared goes into x cubed x times. And then y goes into y squared y time. Okay? So our final answer here is 16x squared y. That's your greatest common factor. And then if you take that times x to the 4th plus y cubed plus 2xy, you get back the original polynomial.